We were released to leave the battle zone. And, 6 weeks before that, there were 300 of us in my company. Do you know how many left? 8 of us. 8 of us walked off out of 300. We walked down to the gate of the cemetery. That's where we rallied. And the old man was there, Harry the Horse Liversedge, Bellewood, First World War, full bird colonel. He said, men, I want you to go through that gate and say goodbye to your officers and your buddies. Come back out and we'll join together. We'll get aboard our ship, go back, get ready for Japan. They hadn't surrendered yet. We marched down there to the close by the gate. And as we walked through, every Marine that went through there looked over to the left on a piece of paper, 8.5, and they were reading it, and then walk in. When I got there, this is what I read. Fellas, when you go home, tell the folks we did our best, that they may have many more tomorrows. Not one dry eye went through that gate. It was really interesting. We're listening to big bands, enjoying it, and all of a sudden the announcer came on, and he said, ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt this broadcast. The President of the United States will address the nation. And we sat there. Now, we knew Pearl Harbor was hit, but we didn't know where Pearl Harbor was. And he came on, and this is what he said. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date that will live in infamy. United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked upon by the naval and armed forces of the Empire of Japan. I interpret the will of Congress and of the people. We shall gain triumphant victory, so help us God. I said, I'm skipping school tomorrow morning. So my sisters, 2 sisters, were get ready for school, and I pretended I was getting ready. And my mother was a 4'10.5" Irish lady with a real good temper. And I said, don't tell Ma. They said, okay. They took off. I ran all the way downtown Detroit, 1 mile. I just went. And I got up on the 4th floor, and a gunny sergeant met me. He said, what can I do for you, young man? I said, I want to sign up. He said, how old are you? I was hoping he'd do it. I said, 16. He said, I can't touch you, buddy. You got to be 17 years old. When will you be 17? I said, 6 months. He said, tell you what I'll do. I'll give you the paper that you need. You take this home to your mother and father when you're 17, have them sign it, come back here, and we can do business. You want to do that? I said, yes, sir. He said, go. I ran all the way back to the house. I was so excited, I forgot I skipped school and ran in the back door. And there's my mother. And she said, what are you doing home? And I told her, she said, I'm not signing that paper. I went through the First World War, and I'm not going to go through this one. Throw it away. Well, I went in the dining room, opened the buffet drawer up, stuck under some papers, shoved it. 6 months I had to go for a birthday of 17.
So once you were 17, you got to join the service, and then you went out to California to train.
Marine Corps base.
Yes, sir. How did you get assigned to be a flamethrower?
My skipper loved me. He was a good man. He was a paratrooper. They broke up and helped form the 5th Division. I was heading for the PX, and he called up. He says, Graves? I said, yes, sir. He said, I'll talk to you. I said, yes, sir. Congratulations. You're our new flamethrower. I said, Skipper, my gosh, look at me. And I was an inch shorter then than I am now, and about 10 pounds lighter. He said, you'll be hard to see. So what else could I do? I took the flamethrower and trained with it. And he was right, because the lifespan of a flamethrower on Iwo Jima, how much do you think it was?
Not long.
4 minutes. I was the only one that came back in the battalion that we know of. Yeah, I came close to a couple of times. If I hadn't had a rifleman with me, I would have been chopped liver.
So then when it was time to go to Iwo Jima, you were in the 3rd wave.
3rd wave.
Were you carrying the flamethrower then?
Flamethrower, you practically sleep with it.
Tell me about coming in on that third wave.
Oh, it was something. Well, you know, let me just say this before we left the ship. We had breakfast early in the morning. We could see the battle. I mean, the island was covered with clouds. Everything was going up in the air. The ships were fighting our boys. And they served steak and eggs. They had shift tables up on top of deck, LSD. And I looked at that, and I saw that steak and those eggs, and there was this kid next to me, and I said, "Hey, buddy, yeah, what's with the steak and eggs? We had eggs, but no, that's the first time we ever had steak." He said, "Graves, use your head. What do they do with convicts before they execute them?" I said, "Yeah, I understand." As we were coming in, of course, we all sat down on the deck. And they were amphibious tractors. And the Japanese call them alligators with wheels. And we were heading into the beach, and all of a sudden, I heard swoosh. I got up like that, looked off the fantail, direct hit. Got a good-sized group of Marines. It just went up in the air and came down. And thank God it didn't hit us. But we came to the beach. We could not get up on the beach. It was jammed, packed with Marines. Some of them dead, some of them we couldn't get up. If you went up the top, bam! We were pinned down 575 feet, Mount Suribachi, right down on us. Now that flamethrower weighs 72 pounds loaded. It's got 2.5 here, 2.5 there, 5 gallons of fuel with a pressure tank in the middle. You got your hose hooked to the gun. And that gun you hook across your shoulders while you're walking in that. The fellas got me up on the edge, shoved me over in the water. I got up out of the water and spurted around. They grabbed me out of there. We went up and we moved up on the sand. We had to crawl over our buddies to get there, just to get up out of the water. And that's where I buried my face in the sand, and I had a talk with the Lord. It took that for me to do it. No atheists in foxholes. No.
How did you move on from there?
Just waited, took our time. I mean, if you jumped up and tried to go over, you dropped. Right there, 575 feet, pinned right down on us. We had to get that stopped. It took a lot of men. We lost 200 kids on that beach. Just my outfit. But all the way down. And to my right, where that unit is right there, John Basilone, Medal of Honor, Guadalcanal. He got hit right there with a sniper and was killed. You know, John was on a bond tour after Guadalcanal. And he said to his skipper, which was Chesty Puller, he was a captain at the time, Puller could go through 2/5 a day. He said, "Skipper, I can't do this. I don't want to do this." He said, "John, we're raising a lot of money." He said, "I want to go back with my buddies." He said, "Well, you're a Medal of Honor. I can't say no, go." He took off, got everything. He joined us. He trained with us. He hit the beach with us. And he got hit by a sniper. The word went out. Basilone just got it. Man, that hurt our morale. He was a good man, good Marine. Manila John is what they called him.
Once you were off the beach, your next objective is Mount Suribachi?
When we hit the top, we made a turn, but the problem was I lost my 2 men, and I was alone. So I headed towards Suribachi, which was 575 feet. I rolled into a hole, and it's starting to get dark. And I saw another Marine in the hole with me, and he's got his M1 towards Mount Suribachi, but he's not moving. And I says, "Hey, Mac, what outfit you in?" We were all mixed up. Didn't answer. I reached over and touched him, then I noticed the bottom half of his body was on the other side. I got out of that hole and jumped into another one. I lost my 2 men. I'm alone, and there's no way I can get anybody now. Until the next day, a buddy yelled out, "Graves, hold up, I'll go with you." He says, "I don't know where my outfit is." We were all mixed up, but we fought. And so it took us 3 days to go 575 feet to reach the base of Suribachi. and they were hunkered down around the beach, and they just let us have it. Yep. We had to fight our way up Mount Suribachi, and they would just lob grenades down at us. We couldn't throw ours up. It was a bloody battle just to take that mountain. Yeah.
Your life was in danger at every moment. But
Every moment.
I've heard that you were nearly killed at the base of Suribachi.
Yes.
What happened?
Well, there was a Japanese soldier. He ran across the front of us, and he dove in a hole, just jumped right down in a hole. And I said, "Did you see that?" And John said, "I saw him." Yeah, he said, "I'll go throw hand grenades in." No. Let's try and talk him out. Now, we had orientation before we got into our landing craft. If you can take a prisoner, take him. We don't know anything about that island. Because when they surrender, they'll tell you everything. They've disobeyed the holiness, at that time. Well, I said, "Just a minute." And I said, Detakoi, come. Kaharushaki, flamethrower. Nothing. I did it twice. And I said, "Okay, John, let's advance." And we started to move. We took one step, and he came up out, and he wasn't the way, he looked different. He had a plume hat, he had a sword, he had a beautiful uniform on. And I said to John, "John, that sword is mine." He said, "You can have it." We moved up, we got about 6 feet from that hole, and he was standing there like this. Boom! Nothing left. Nothing. He took the sword with him.
How were you able to ultimately get up the mountain? The Japanese had the high ground, so how were you able to overcome that?
Fight. Call for aircraft. But geez, we're on the mountain already. And these, we're a little bit small when they come down, our Marines and Navy boys. But they did a good job. They pulverized that island for us. And we seemed to crawl towards the top. And meanwhile, here's what happened, the flag. There was nothing in the picture about a flag. We knew nothing about this. We just didn't have anything to do with the flag. And then all of a sudden, Harold Schreier, lieutenant, executive officer to my battalion commander, Chandler Johnson, and he was killed. And he said, Harold, he reached in his blouse, he said, "Take this flag and see if he can get it up for the skipper on the transport we came on. He wants me to do it. Would you do it?" He said, "Yes, sir." So they went up there and they got that flag up, and we were wondering, what the heck did they put it on? We didn't have anything. They found drain pipe. So when you see the flag go up, that's drain pipe put together, which the Japanese got to trap rainwater, rained every night, and down in the holes, down in the bottom of Mount Suribachi. That's what they used it for. So the flag was up, and you should have heard what went on. 520 Navy ships out in the bay, opened up with sirens and everything, horns. Everybody on the island, up in the north end where they were fighting, they let everything go up in the air. It was a spectacle. It was great. And a lot of us just cried. We felt so good.
Huge morale boost.
But the Japanese fought twice as hard after that. We put our flag for the first time on the land of Japan.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you're anything like me, getting quality sleep can be rough. This is our busiest season here at the AVC. We're putting on the National Memorial Day Parade, managing tons of interviews, and sometimes the stress has me waking up 3 or 4 times a night. That's why I'm excited to share with you something that really helped me. Dream by Beam. It's a natural sleep powder with ingredients like magnesium and L-theanine that help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. Even during this hectic stretch, I've been sleeping great and waking up with energy. Plus, it tastes amazing, like a cup of hot cocoa before bed. Dream is available with or without melatonin, depending on what works for you. And with over 17.5 million already sleeping better and thousands of great reviews, I knew it was worth trying, and I'm glad I did. Head to shopbeam.com/AVC and use code AVC to get up to 35% off. Thanks to Beam for supporting the channel and for helping me to finally sleep through the night.
So after Suribachi came Hill 362A, correct?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
we lost our battalion. We came to Hill 362A. It was midday. I've always followed a little behind because if they get me, like I said before, I'm chopped liver. That's all there is to it. So I stayed behind. I still didn't have anybody assigned to me. I mean, they needed every man they could. So we approached Hill 362A, and everything opened up with a big opening in front of it. They could lob everything out of there. It was really something. And I had my phone, and all I heard was, so-and-so, the company, CP, so we're getting hit bad. We need some help. We're losing our officers. And, it was just, and I couldn't do nothing. I'm all alone. I've got to really take care of myself. I just broke up. I just cried. I felt so bad. Then they said, Sergeant Goss just got it in the wrist. Oh my gosh, he just died. Shock. That's all you heard. It was terrible. They beat the daylights out of us, but we secured it. Then the next morning, a buddy of mine came up. He's our music. That's all he does. Taps, all of that. He said, Graves, we got a job to do. We got to close that in. See, I had a demolition squad, but I carried the flamethrower. So we got everything ready, 5-gallon can of gasoline, primer cord, fuse. We had everything. We had a shape charge, like a hornet's nest or like a beehive, like that. And then if you set it off, everything down like that. So we carried that stuff up a little trail to crawl up up on top of Hill 362A, and some of our kids opened up from a tank on us, and right over my ear and my shoulder, a .50 caliber, just like that. And I said, "We've had it, buddy." He says, "We got to let them know who we are, for crying out loud." Then all of a sudden it stopped. Someone must have said, "Those are our boys." Can you see where God moved in there? Man, it had to be him. Well, we finally got to the top, but we're on the opposite side. The hole is over there. We had to carry everything across 25 dead soldiers, Japanese, and we crawled over them to get to the hole. We set the 5-gallon can of gas off and like this, and when it came in, we set her off, 8 seconds. Kabooey! When we got done with that, we put the shape charge on top. We crawled off the top, set it, boom! Never closed it. It was never closed. We moved on from there, and we're on our own. We have no officers. Do you know that a bunch of kids fought for 3 weeks after Hill 362A? We fought for, we were well trained. We did it. You know, we got up on the north, towards the north, and it got a little bit funny. I don't know if you heard about the hot chocolate. You know, we were teenagers. We didn't drink coffee. We had hot chocolate. We'd take our D-bar and dice it up, water, put it in the canteen cup, put a little C2 under it, light it, just cooks away nice, you know. We wanted it, so I got it all set up. We're sitting in a hole, and the Japanese are about 200 feet away. And all of a sudden I said, "Oh boy, that's good." And the other kid says, "There's 3 of us." He said, "Let's have it." So I started reaching for it, then all of a sudden, "Hey, Marine, very good chocolato. You bring chocolato here." I said, "If you want chocolate, you come and get it." He said, "Oh, no, you bring here." That went on, that kind of stuff.
One of the things I know from other interviews you've done and studying Iwo Jima is that for the most part, the Japanese did not attack during the daytime.
No.
It was Banzai charges at night.
At night, 300-400.
How did you repel that?
Killed them. We used everything we had. You don't use a flamethrower at nighttime. Yeah, you light up. I grabbed a carbine, and we just fought him. I had a Japanese make it through. He stood at the edge of my hole. And you know, we're about 12 feet apart. The hole's 15 feet. And they all said, Graves, you got one coming. I said, I see him. He's got a bag. He's got hand grenades. They use hand grenades. And so I'm sitting like this. The only weapon I've got at that time was my 45. I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with a 45. And I pulled that baby out and pulled the hammer back, and he stood over him, and he's grunting, and bam, 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 bam. 15 rounds. I opened the whole thing up on him, and he went, and walked away from me. I said, he's coming. My buddy says, I see him, and they killed him. It was crazy. They were on drugs, alcohol, drugs. Yeah.
They're screaming too, right?
Oh, just terrible. Yeah, you'd think they were dying, but they weren't.
So tell me about using the flamethrower. How did you, in what situations? It was in the caves, right?
In the cave, we were down. My gosh, how many did we have left in our battalion? My gosh, we're talking about 100 people maybe at that time, and we've got about another week to go on the north end. And those caves are big. There was a big one, and our battalion command held up in that. So we went in there, but we didn't know there was a cave around the back. They could come in around this way. So they came around screaming and yelling, and this is a bad one. And I've got my flamethrower right there, and I've got an M1 now, 8 rounds. And I saw him coming, and all of us opened up. We just dropped him. Another one came around and screamed, and I hit him, and he fell on the ground, and he's moaning and groaning and yelling, and I said, I'm going to finish him. I walked over, and it's my buddy. I hit him right here in the chest, just through the flesh. And I says, why were you yelling? He says, I was afraid, and he sounded just like a Japanese. He made it, though. He came back with us. He thanked me for the scar.
That's brotherhood right there. Tell me, another difficult story I know is the replacement.
The what?
The young...
Oh, I'll take it to my grave. We had about a week to go now. And the 3 of us are sitting in the hall. And I said, I better be looking for snipers. So I got up there. I'm looking for snipers, and I'm up there about 15 minutes. I dropped back down, and I said, I can't find it. There's nothing's going on out there. So I got on my horn, and I said, Graves, Company CP. He said, go ahead, Graves. I said, I've been up there for 15 minutes, and I can't spot anything out there. Well, you better keep looking, because they fired around back here and hit the sergeant, our first soldier, in the thigh. We got him down the medic. So keep looking. By the way, you got a kid coming for replacement. I says, good, we can use him. So about 10, 15 minutes later, he comes to the top of the hole. We were waiting for him. And he said, Graves? I said, yo, what do you want me to do? I said, come on down, sit down. Tonight there'll be a lot to do. Just sit down. So I said, well, I got to get up there. The kid says, great, let me take a look. And I said, no, you get yourself shot. My 2 buddies says, that's what he's here for. Give him the glasses. I threw him the glasses. He took them, got up where I had been for 15 minutes. That sniper knew I'd be back. And this kid got up there. And he was up there about 10 minutes, and we're just shooting the breeze and talking. Pew! He fell back. His helmet flew off down by my feet. And I looked in the helmet, caught in the webbing, was a beautiful lady sitting in a chair with a baby on her lap. I lost it. I just threw everything off me. I jumped up and down, and I shook my fist. I said, curse this. Curse this Marine Corps. Listen, curse God for letting that kid take my place. I didn't understand. We were released to leave the battle zone. And 6 weeks before that, there were 300 of us in my company. Here it is later, 6 weeks. Do you know how many left? 8 of us. 8 of us walked off out of 300. We walked down to the gate of the cemetery. That's where we rallied. And the old man was there, Harry the Horse Liversedge, Bellewood, First World War, full bird colonel. He said, men, I want you to go through that gate and say goodbye to your officers and your buddies. Come back out and we'll join together. We'll get aboard our ship, go back, get ready for Japan. They hadn't surrendered yet. We marched down there to the close by the gate. And as we walked through, every Marine that went through there looked over to the left on a piece of paper, 8.5, like what you've got right there. And they were reading it and then walk in. When I got there, this is what I read. Fellas, when you go home, tell the folks we did our best, that they may have many more tomorrows. Not one dry eye went through that gate. We came out, assembled, got on the Higgins. They took us aboard ship. We went up the net. Got aboard ship, took off.
How did you hear that the Japanese had surrendered, and what was your reaction knowing that you wouldn't have to go through that again?
Yes. Well, while we were sailing back to Pearl, we trained there. That was our camp. The word just flew like crazy. I had put a show. Bob Crosby, Bing Crosby's brother, he was a lieutenant, a recreation officer. He said, Graves, it's time to draft some buddies and put on a show. Just grab them. I put a show on. It was at nighttime. We had 2 weeks to do nothing. Liberty, whatever you want to do. And then after that, we got ready for Japan, and we were training for them. We were going to hit the main coast. Well, Harry Truman sent a note to the Pentagon. I would like to know what the cost would be by taking mainland of Japan. They sent back, the Pentagon sent back the balance and said, sir, it would probably take about $7 million. He said, we'll drop the bomb. That's what happened. He dropped the bomb. I will never forget the battle. We did our job. It cost heavily. I lost all my buddies. The hand of God was on me. I didn't deserve it. I couldn't understand that. There were better kids than me. I couldn't understand that. But when word came that Harry Truman accept their surrender, it was a chaos. It was at the theater there, and we just went wild. And Bob Crosby said, hold her down, fellas. Hold it down. He said, go to your tents. We marched to our tents. We went in sacks. Not one word was said, but all you heard was going home. Bunch of teenagers going home. Now they're young men.